Hi, welcome everyone. So as we've seen, a lot of people already joined, so we think we can start now. I would love to welcome you to our first webinar session about why top-down innovation isn't enough. So today we have Gabby with us from Roche, who is innovation leader there, and Dave, our CEO of GetKickBOX. Me, myself, I'm Celia. I'm in the growth team at GetKickBOX, and I will lead you through today's webinar as a moderator. And we will have Dave and Gabby answering some great questions and giving us some insights about how they implemented GetKickBOX, how they started to use that whole bottom-up innovation system. So first of all, I would like to give the word to Gabby and Dave so they can introduce themselves, and then we will deep dive into the topic where you always can ask us questions in the Q&A field that you have in Zoom. And if you have any comments, feel free to share your thoughts in the chat. So now I would like to give the word to Gabby. Gabby, are you with us? So that she can introduce herself.
Thank you, Celia. So I work at Roche, which is a global pharmaceutical company. We have almost 100,000 employees worldwide. And I work in the global headquarters based in Switzerland, where I'm responsible for driving a culture of innovation within a group of about 600 people that are responsible for our global strategies. So I've been in that role for about 18 months now and introduced Kickbox as part of that aim to drive that culture of innovation about 9 months ago. So thank you for the invitation to join today.
Thank you so much for joining. We're very excited about hearing some inputs of Roche. Now I would leave the word to Dave, who is sitting next to me because we're allowed now in the office for a bit.
First week back to the office. Very warm welcome from my side as well to this webinar. I'm super excited. And I'm Dave. I'm heading the GetKickBOX company. I'm the CEO of GetKickBOX. It's a Swisscom venture where we are enabling large enterprises to innovate with the Kickbox methodology. And it all started 5 years ago when I joined Swisscom from the startup side. I was a startup scout. I was building up the open innovation activities in Switzerland for Swisscom. And while scouting startups, I stumbled upon the Kickbox methodology. I started to bring the methodology into Swisscom as a pilot, as a hobby. It turned out to be a hobby that was more and more time demanding. It turned out that it would be my next job. Now that was a full-time job, and then slowly grew and grew until 1.5 years ago we started to also share what we are doing with other companies. And that's my role here today as CEO of GetKickBOX.
Thank you, Dave, for introducing yourself. Also very happy that we have you with us. So now it's about you. So we would love to hear from you who you are, what role do you have, and what do you expect from this webinar today. So feel free to put your answers now in the chat, in the Zoom chat. And yeah, so that we know a bit who we have on the other side, because we can't see you. Do you have any information about that? And what do you expect from the webinar that we can make it as successful for you as possible. As you see here, Dave provided us with an example. So just use that example for your answer. He also just put it into the chat. So I will give you 30 seconds or a minute, and then we go on.
And if you write to,
Great.
Interesting. Different companies, very broad set of people in the call.
Already some interest in how Roche implemented the innovation approach.
Yeah, learning on Roche, learning on the method, on data. From the Netherlands, from the US, from really international crowd here. Asia, Africa, wow, amazing. Again, Gabby, big demand for Roche. I want to learn how Roche is innovating with Kickbox, learn about bottom-up. Another US participant about virtual remote innovation, how you can run Kickbox remote. Colombia, several people from Colombia here, really nice. Cordial saludo a Colombia. Berlin, industry company, fashion company, bank. Wow, super exciting. Really, really broad set of people here in this webinar. The answers are still coming in.
Thank you, Rolf.
If you share to all attendees as well, then everybody can see it, not just the panelists. That's also a little hint to you. While I think some of you are still writing and posting, but
that's great. Just keep on posting, but I think we're gonna continue. I hope you all hear us. Yeah, in case at any point there should be an issue with the connection or anything, or you don't see our presentation that is already up currently, just let us know in the chat as well, so we can help out there. So then I would start with the deep dive into the topic itself. So as the title of this webinar already says, it's essential to foster innovation bottom up. So now we're going to talk about what are issues behind the top down approach, what are the challenges with the bottom up approach, and why is it working better. So what we discovered is that new ideas often got cut by several hierarchy levels before actually they're really looking at the people who are standing behind the idea, and don't really give the idea a chance to develop, because often it's the people behind it are very important. So here I would like to ask Gabby and Dave now as well about their experiences, what their experience had with Hippo and with this the challenges of top-down innovation. So Gabby or Dave, happy to hear your experiences about that.
So I can start, and this question made me think back to the life before Kickbox and what you would do if you had an idea then. And I guess what people would do would be, first of all, convince their line manager they had a good idea. And then their line manager would need to be really convinced that there was something in there, that they would encourage that person to go to the next level in the organization, and so on and so forth. And to be honest, I think that just the thought of having to go through that process would stop anybody in the first place. So I think what we saw in the past was ideas being developed, but only ideas that were relevant for, say, a particular function or the department in which you worked, where you felt comfortable that you would be able to get that support for your idea very easily. And absolutely, one of the pieces of feedback we receive consistently about the benefit of Kickbox is that feeling of empowerment. And it's okay to simply bring my idea, develop it, and nobody's going to judge. I don't need to seek approval. So I think it's a massive difference in just that freedom to explore your ideas without having to convince the world that it's a good one before you can even get started.
Yeah, I fully agree on that. I think just to get the chance to start, I think, and just even if it's under the radar, that's really something I learned very early on, coming from the startup side, having worked for different startups, built up own startups, and all the tricks that worked really well, just getting shit done, get started, no blah, just didn't really work anymore. You know, it's kind of, you have these hierarchies, these processes, and if you were basically coming up too early for a raw idea, which probably is not a validated, still a bad idea, like all raw ideas, then you have no chance to be successful. And then I learned very early on, even before Kickbox, I started to figure out, while doing all these startup projects, how can you hack the corporate? What are ways you could apply, hacks you can apply to stay submarine for a while, just get things done, ask for forgiveness instead of permission. It's really like that. I've done many times, or all these things really helped a lot. And I think all these tricks, I think, are really key, and all the kind of that classical top-down innovation, for all its benefits, it clearly has, there are some limitations that we can't overcome with processes like Kickbox.
So, and Gabby, you already mentioned before that GetKickBOX really helped with that.
Mm-hmm.
What are your, so how did you see some very essential changes here from the point on when you implemented GetKickBOX?
Well, I mean, one of the reasons in fact, the main reason we implemented Kickbox was to assist with a general direction that the company is going to become more agile, reduce the levels of hierarchy, and to empower people. So there's a huge organizational desire to empower people and make things happen more easily. And what I liked about Kickbox is it's a very visible signal of that. It's all very well talking about empowerment, but Kickbox is a real crystal signal. Yes, you can have the time to pursue your ideas. It became just becoming words and something real. And yes, it was absolutely appreciated by our Kickboxers and others that appreciated the opportunity to get involved.
Great.
And what it does, I'm just thinking back to Dave's point, rather than the under the radar, doing things under the radar, people are also proud. So people are recognized for being a kickboxer. And then the role of the leadership is not to get in the way, but is actually to encourage, to say congratulations to the kickboxers, to express their interest and want to get involved. So it means that they can play a very positive role in driving innovation instead of being a blocker. So I think they have absolutely appreciated it too.
Very nice. Some happy experiences to share here. And Dave, as we see here in the slide, we have that stop playing hippo. I don't know if it's if everyone here who is in the call knows what hippo means. Do you want to give us a definition of what that means?
It's basically the highest paid person's opinion. It's like what I also had to learn very quickly in the corporates, the hierarchies are really important. It's at the end, if the highest paid person has an opinion, it has a very kind of a high impact as well. And I experienced many jury sessions where at the final decision was highly influenced by that hippo opinion. That's why I really believe at this early stage you should really stop playing hippo and let actual customer data decide whether you want to fund an idea further. Later on, sure, it will be much with the bigger budgets, it will become more and more relevant, but at the beginning, you should really try to live according to that.
Do you want to add something to that, Gabby? Otherwise, we will go on.
Just my own. I think we all can play hippo if we're not careful, whether we're the highest paid person or not. I'm really glad that, so in Roche, we have a team of kickbox coaches. And we're the first people that are approached by new ideas, but we make a call that we don't make any assessment at all. Every idea is in and gets a kickbox. And there are some ideas which, to be honest, when they're explained to me, and I'm like, well, I'm not sure that's very exciting. There's one about some tool to help admin assistants develop organograms really quickly. And I was like, well, that's not going to change the world, is it? But speaking to a couple of admins, think that is the best idea in the world. And you think, oh, if it had been down to me, I would have cut off something that had a huge amount of potential and benefit for a lot of people in the company. So it's not just the level of hierarchy. It's when you don't when the problem, the solution is trying to solve doesn't resonate with you, then the idea is not valuable. But we're not necessarily the right people to judge. So again, I love the process. We can just say yes to everything and see what happens.
Amazing. Great. So there are different challenges of top-down innovation and a lot of benefits of bottom-up innovations. So we have, as the first point, it is very important for the companies to really create a failure culture. So that means to give your employees the allowance to do mistakes and learn from these mistakes, since these are the points in life where you learn the most. As a next point, it is really about employee education. The employees go through an extreme transformation when they go through this process. They apply new methods, they learn new ways of working. And of course, that leads also to the whole transformation of an organization. I guess you all, since almost every one of you is working within an innovation department or is at least interested in innovation, you definitely know that it's hard to transform one of these huge organizations. So if you start from bottom up with all the people who work for you, you make it a lean process to get there. Also, it's a benefit about bottom up that the people at the front are always involved, because that's an issue. That's something we forgot often when it's about top-down innovation. We don't include the people who actually have daily customer contact. So there it's fundamental. If we start including them in our process, we get feedback from our customers to them and they see the real problems that should be solved. C-level opinions are often way too much valued. They don't see what people are struggling with in shops or production site, construction site. So there it makes sense to really get in different opinions from different levels. I cannot influence. That's such a frustrating sentence that we hear a lot from employees. They're frustrated because they see their company struggling, or they want to be there to make a difference. So there you can use a bottom-up approach to get people involved more and give them influence and trust. So they will also give you trust back as a company and go way more motivated to their old job as well. As we already discussed before, often people judge raw ideas. What can be a huge issue, since often it's hard to just look at the raw idea, because it's mostly the people behind it where you can see if they are self-starters or not. So it's important to give people the opportunity to go on with an idea. And as Gabby also said before, to really get this appreciation and being proud of it, that they can do something. Then another thing is, of course, you attract and retain extreme talent through this thing, because you get people in who would maybe otherwise start their own startup, but when they see they can get to you, you get this self-started, very motivated people who love to work and get in new ideas, new strategies. So it's a great employer branding, and you also get more visibility through it. The employees, you see the employees, you can judge them better. They get the chance to show you what they can. That's again, as already said now a few times, but you're going to hear it a few times more later on, because it's so essential that you really involve everyone. Everyone has different experiences. They come from different backgrounds. They see different things every day. So use this whole resource of brains and experiences to really get your company to the forefront of innovation. As well as powerful movements are mostly better made when you start bottom up, because you start by involving everyone. It's not something you create on the top and then have to go through and get people in. You already started with everyone, so it makes it easier as well for you. Exactly, so with GetKickBOX and this bottom-up approach, everyone has the chance to start a project. They give you their know-how and their time and everything, and so these are they go through these challenges of these topics. Exactly. And of course, a very nice point as well is that people start having collaboration across hierarchies. That means you get people who would have never talked to director of XY or their strategy now gets on the same level with them to talk to them about their ideas. So you make also a nicer atmosphere for everyone. But yeah, now I talked a lot. You are here to hear from Dave and Gabby, of course. So Gabby, which of these comments are your favorite ones, or the ones that you think are most important?
So the one that jumped out at me is I cannot influence. Again, it's sort of reflected in the ideas that have come through at Roche within our particular group. I'll share one of my favorite ideas, and that, so we live in so we work in the tallest building in Switzerland. So it's literally a bit of an ivory tower, 40 floors, and Roche is building a second tower right next door. And one of our kickboxers came up with the idea of building a sky bridge between these two new buildings, and it was when I was like, whoa, don't you think the architects might have already thought about that? But I admired his sort of courage in bringing this idea forward. And he did the research, and the driver for this was the time we spend waiting for lifts in our very tall building. And given him due, he worked out how much time, how much money would be saved if we had a bridge between these two buildings. And when he dug further, he found out, no, the architects hadn't considered this. They hadn't evaluated it properly. They didn't understand the problem we faced about the lifts. And actually, the idea went as far as the CEO with the ask of doing a proper valuation. And that was just a lovely example of where you can influence beyond the boundaries of your job, and don't assume that somebody else is tackling a problem or is thinking about a problem. So again, one of the feedbacks we hear is that empowerment to try and fix things that you might think is somebody else's responsibility. So that's one that really holds true.
And I can fully double on that. I fully agree. This, for me, it's a very important point as well, that people know and feel they can influence and they can bring in their idea, and it's not just being a number, and anyway you cannot choose what happens. And one example here, you had a kind of an employee who was already, I would say, around 60, 55, 60, and he got a red box for smart home solutions, like hardware for your smart home, like to Ring, to cameras. And he told me in the years he's convinced that would be the big thing for Swisscom, and he always wanted to do that. And finally, there's this chance, and he started to validate, and this, at the end of the red box phase, actually it was a failure pitch, interesting, or he just told us very openly why he figured out that would not work for Swisscom, that all the reasons. He actually even ordered some equipment and tried to also figure out if there would be a way of building a business, but he figured out himself that the idea he had since years actually doesn't work. And that's really, really powerful if you find that out yourself. And when you think of the other points I'm reading here, for example, the retaining talent one, I like employer branding / retaining talent. I think while talking to people, we had several people coming back to Swisscom actually, because they wrote an email, hey, I found that program really cool. That actually was one more motivation reason to reapply again to my old employer. And we found even a team lead somewhere in one of the touch points that told us he only hires kickboxers or alumni kickboxers. These are the people he wants to have in his team. That's something for us very nice to see, and also an interesting kind of effect that program has.
Exactly. That goes a lot back as well to the education, that people even start saying they want to have kickboxers. Do you have something else to say about these comments, Gabby?
I think the other one I would highlight is the failure culture. I don't like failure culture as an expression, but that that opportunity to try things and not being concerned if they don't pan out. There is something about that kickbox process where you expect there to be more red box ideas, fewer blue box ideas, and still fewer gold box ideas, which mean people can embark on their red box ideas without any feeling that if they don't succeed, it's a failure. It's sort of expected that only a minority will pursue. So again, I think that it adds to the empowerment. It adds to that feeling of I can try something, and if it doesn't work out, then that's perfectly okay. So just the way the program is structured does help with that quite a bit.
I agree with that. Also, one I think is very important. We have this wine and fail after work events where you first drink wine and then you share stories and what you learned during the failure. And we had even once, we had one of the top managers, one of the board of the Swisscom board was sharing one of the huge failures he had. And I think that's also kind of a transformational effect on the company of living that culture. And maybe the last point I found was like everyone can start. That's also something I really love that you say. Maybe you have, for example, you have a corporate responsibility team, but they're running regular kind of campaigns to ask all employees if they have great ideas around corporate responsibility, sustainability, and then they basically challenge themselves. Even if they are studying all day the new solutions for sustainability, they're open to really let everybody contribute and come up with solutions. That has been really, really successful, also working here with the ecosystem, with the impact hubs, with the World Wildlife Foundation, and really run these kind of sustainability campaigns.
We see that too, a lot of sustainability ideas, not prompted by anything, but you can just see where the natural passions of people and what's relevant for everybody, and sustainability is absolutely big one that's coming through.
Great, such interesting insights. So as we already now also talked about it, really the people, it's not the core of the entrepreneurships are not ideas, it's the people behind it. Ideas can be great, but the people who started it don't have the right mindset, for example, to get rid of the idea again if it doesn't work. But there can also be an issue that the idea isn't that good, but you have extremely good self-starters behind it. So always look at the people. What are your experiences with that, Gabby?
So I completely agree. So I can see some questions coming up on the chat about the time. How do you enable time, the 20% time? And that, to be honest, is the biggest challenge of the Kickbox process. So you need people who are determined to find that time, find some way to move their idea forward. So it's that grit, that determination that you need to pursue. I think there's only so much you can do to support the person, the owner of the idea really has to have the drive. And I have examples of what I think are fantastic ideas in the platform, and me and the coaches are getting really frustrated because they're not moving forward, and it's the person clearly hasn't got the energy to, or hasn't found that way to make it possible. So we're like, what can we do? What can we do? And I don't think there is anything we can do. Equally, we see we see a lot of ideas that actually what I like best is when ideas change, when people are responding to the feedback and they're shifting direction. We see that quite a lot, and those are the ones that I think there's something here, because people haven't got an idea in their head which they're determined to launch whatever, but they're responding to what they hear, the feedback, changing their plans, and coupled with that determination to succeed, those are the ones that I think are going to make it all the way in one shape or another.
Great, thank you for your insights. So now, of course, we talked a lot about the people and how important they are, but you kind of have to find them as well. So that's the big question. How can you find and foster these people? And I think Dave got probably a good answer to that.
Yeah, I really think a little hint, I think the people will find you at the end. I think a good entrepreneur, he knows who to ask and what to hack and where to get his resource, his support. And I really think at the end, in bottom up, you just have to be an enabler. You have to offer the tools that people need. You don't be a gatekeeper, let them get things done, and then you will find the successful ones will be flushed up. They will get funding, they will be successful, and then these are the ones you have to invest.
Agree. It sort of takes care of itself, I think. I can see we have, there are people who I expect will be repeat kickboxers. In fact, they have multiple ideas and it's like, oh, should I do this one, can I do two at once? I think there's a natural, it's a great way of finding out who those people are, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and because it gives like this, only the people will come who actually want to do it. That's true. That's a great way to get them. And now we'll give the word to Dave for a bit.
So yeah, what's the kickbox? Many of you have written in the chat at the beginning, I want to learn more about the kickbox. And at the end, it's this physical box. It's a pure statement of empowerment, of ownership. And it's not an idea mailbox. If you have an idea in an idea mailbox, you drop it in and you wait for somebody else to execute. With Kickbox, you're in the driver's seat. You're the CEO of your idea, and you have to make it happen and turn your idea into a successful product, team, startup. And the box is only one element of the Kickbox methodology. There are actually three elements. You have the physical toolboxes. They have the process, a lot of gadgets. They have a voucher for time, for money, access to service providers. So you can get a lawyer. You can easily work in a co-working space. That's one element, the physical artifact. But there's also the online platform that helps you to manage the program, for us to make it visible across the whole organization, for C-level, so they can get informed, for experts, so they can join and support, for potential team members, so they can do the team building, or for just whoever who wants to just consume and learn more about what's going on in the program. It's kind of like a Kickstarter for companies. And the third element, the peer community. It's many people are co-creating this program. It's and we basically are exchanging, sharing, and learning from each other. And I think these are the three key elements, the secret sauce behind Kickbox. And the process looks like that. It's basically ongoing. Like every employee can submit an idea at any time. And we discussed before, it's always a yes. So you get a red box, you get 2 months and up to a day a week, 1,000 francs budget, and you validate your idea with the Kickbox methodology, and you get some very lean coaching, some support on the journey, and your goal is to get the buy-in from the business, to bring back a signed sponsoring agreement from somebody putting down resources and investing in your idea. Once you have achieved that, you get the blue box to run a proof of concept, a pilot, and show within 4 to 6 months with a budget of roughly 10 to 50K that there is a big potential in your idea. Here we're intensifying the coaching already, half a day, 1 day, to really figure out if an idea has what it takes to become a gold box, which would be the full-time commitment. The intrapreneur, the kickboxer, created his own job. He either has a new internal role or works in a spin-off. And looking at the numbers, 500 red boxes are starting, around 70 have achieved the blue box, and 15 the gold box. So it's a tough funnel of 500 red boxes, only 70 blue boxes. That means more than 400 didn't make it to that stage, and that's where the transformation kicks in, because all these people learned a lot. They receive a diploma. We always joke they went through a lean MBA. They learned new methods, applied them right away, and really hopefully are inspired, motivated, and upskilled in their daily job. So in the next slide, you can see the two elements of Kickbox. It's really about cultural transformation, make employees fit for the future. That's especially in the red phase, and then our blue gold phase for the 10-15% promising cases where the business put money down. There we invest in business impact. It's important to see both sides of the program, and here we try to map the goals, transformation versus innovation along the process. And really, I really see Redbox as an assessment center for an entrepreneur. sure, the idea needs to be feasible and valuable, but at the end, the person needs to perform. And only if both things at the right time work, then it will probably become a successful project later on.
Exactly. Thank you, Dave, for explaining a bit more about the GetKickBOX process itself. So, Gabby, as we already talked about, you implemented it at Roche.
Yes.
So, what was the value you saw behind the process?
Well, as I said before, I think that the driver was the transformational aspect, the empowerment piece. That was the sort of the real push to bring it in, and it's absolutely delivered on that. Then expectations do turn to the ideas that come out. And you know, again, a few learnings is to manage expectations, that these things take time to manage expectations of our sponsors. And perhaps a bit we haven't talked about, well, Dave has talked about, is I mean, we have a lot of different innovation programs at Roche, and we have introduced this to the group that I'm part of, the 600 people. There are others going on. I think what perhaps differentiates this program from the other innovation programs that we have ongoing is the real hands-on support, the coaching, but the book, and helping people move through that innovation process. Others tend to be platforms where ideas are submitted, but then there's no support to back it up. So I think that is one aspect where you've got a greater chance of ideas coming through because of the support and the guidance and the kick book to help people know where to start and how to develop their idea properly.
Exactly, and that's a very important point, to give people an idea of where to start actually and how to move on. That's why it's important to involve the people from the first step on. And yeah, we have heard that now, that it's essential to involve really everyone and give everyone a chance for it. So who is everyone? We have innovation teams, kickbox coaches, either internal kickbox coaches or external. So we have a bunch of external freelance coaches that we trained within Kickbox, the methodology that can be used by you on our platform, or you say, no, we got people internally that we would like to use as coaches, and we come in and train them on the Kickbox program. Then you need to C-level people involved, of course, Kickbox, the community, employees that they can view projects and attend events to make them to know that they actually have the chance to do that. Topic owners, potential sponsors from the business, because at one point in the process, they will have to find a sponsor internally to go on to the next step. Customers, never forget your customers. What are you without your customers, right? Experts with skills, that you have other people from your company on the platform that have special skills that can help other kickboxers. External freelancers. Boss who wants to be informed, so you have the platform, he can see everything on the platform, be always informed about it. The innovators, of course, and the Kickbox program lead. So Dave, would you like to add something to that?
I think customers are really important. That's something I want to pick out. I think to be as early as possible out and talk to customers, which doesn't mean fill out a survey, really be out. And we try also to add in Swisscom Kickbox program different elements. For example, in Swisscom shops, there are testing zones, so the kickboxers can test their prototypes there. Or together with the Swiss Train company, we basically every 3 months in the Swiss train station in Zurich, we run a public testing lab, so the kickboxers can test their prototypes in public. A very high frequent place. probably the most frequented place in Switzerland even. And I think so it's really important that just do small ideas, but really make people go out and make them talk to customers, have interviews, physical or during COVID through Zoom, but really talk to people.
So, and do you have, Gabby, maybe you, do you have an example of who and how you involved the people?
So I think the experts is a great way of bringing people into the program. So the opportunity for people to sign up as experts. By the way, Dave, the name is not the name expert. Puts people off. So a little bit of feedback there. But once we can convince people that they don't need to be an expert, people are happy to sign up, and that allows us to tap into different parts of the organization to find those experts to bring to the platform. Because for a company like Roche, which is so big, the risk of reinventing the wheel and developing an idea which is already, there's a solution already somewhere else in the company is huge. So being able to sort of get as many relevant people as we can from across the company as experts to see the projects to support and be consulted is a great way of bridging some of those gaps. It's also an easy way to ask people to get involved, because people are very happy to be asked to sign up. So they're involved without a lot of commitment on their part. So I think that one is a great way of sort of raising visibility and I'd say going across some of those organizational silos that we have. And then we have quite a few events where the kickboxers can share their ideas with their colleagues, and those have a number of objectives. Firstly, it's to get feedback on their ideas, but also to motivate the kickbox. If they're getting great feedback on their ideas, then that's motivation for them to pursue it further. Clearly, it also raises awareness again around the about kickbox in the group, and I think that's one of the perhaps the challenges that we face is how to keep awareness high and how to keep momentum behind this type of initiative, how to keep it going, how to keep the energy. So the more different ways we can involve people, we can have events, the better.
One sentence to add on the expert topic, I think that's super valuable as well. If you have the whole internal skill pool we all have in our organizations, but sometimes there's a gap. That's what we realized. That's why we start to involve external lawyers, marketeer, prototypers, and dev companies to really support as external freelancers. And now kickboxers can, with their kick coins, their budget, they can also invest in an hour with a lawyer, or an hour to really make a first MVP feasibility check with a dev developer. And I think that's also an addition, like the external view of the expert element.
Yes.
Very interesting. So as a next important part of it, so lean validation is key to make the process a success. And Dave will give you a bit insight about C-level support.
Yeah, I think it's key to have the C-level supporting, the top-down support for a bottom-up program. You need to be able to cover the back of the entrepreneurs. They need to make sure or be sure that what they are doing bottom-up is supported from the top. You mentioned we are creating CEOs, we enable people. And for example, also on the time cards, people get up to a day a week off. At the beginning, we realized it's very challenging to get the time, and this letter from head HR helps a lot. It's addressed to the manager and saying, hey, dear manager, please let your employee innovate. And coming also back to bottom up, in funding, I think it's kind of a Kickstarter process you're having here. Traditionally, you have the juries selecting projects, deciding which one will be successful. As I mentioned earlier on, we have the sponsoring agreement that the kickboxer needs to get a signature of a line manager with funding, with resources for his project. And I think that's also very radically bottom up, because the innovator in the driver's seat to get his budget secured, and he cannot blame a jury for not seeing the potential of his idea. And even more radical, I just want to share quickly one pilot we did. We called it Kick Angels, really even more radical bottom-up funding. We created a crowd of 100 Swisscom employees, each got 2,000 francs budget, and we had 4 investment rounds, and the red boxes were pitching their ideas, try to secure funding. They were writing like fundraising. They wrote to the Kick Angels to get money, and that team, for example, collected 15,000 and now kind of acts as an external startup. And this radical bottom-up approach for funding I want to share created really interesting dynamics. Internal people were doing intros. It was just our budget they were allocating, but it created interesting dynamics. And 4 out of 6 projects are still alive. So it was a much higher success rate in projects than normal, which for me was quite interesting. And I just want to share this bottom-up approach, even on the funding process.
So Gabby, thank you, Dave, for sharing some insights about how you do the funding at Swisscom. Gabby, how did you do the rollout at Roche?
So it was, I think our biggest hurdle in getting started was actually when it came down to contracts and GDPR guidance, but everything else was very easy to implement. Getting the senior level support, these are the people with the green background, these are our most senior sponsors that are fully behind the program. So that was easy. Getting the agreement to the 20% time was easy. Rolling it out with all the materials that you guys provided, really easy. What we've done, as I say, we've rolled it out to the group that I support, and in parallel, I know that some of my colleagues in our manufacturing department were also talking to Dave and Ralph at Kickbox. So we rolled it out in parallel, and we do it slightly differently, but we talk to each other and we learn from what we try. And then from here, we actually encourage people from outside our groups to, if they've got ideas, to submit them as Kickbox projects. We give them a box so that they can learn about the program, experience it themselves, and hopefully sell the concept to wherever they sit in the organization, so that we can gradually spread the use of Kickbox beyond the initial 2 departments where we started. So that's the aim, because I think the more places in the organization that are using the Kickbox, the more powerful it will become.
Nice. So as I look at the time, we'd love to go to the next step, and that's about the self-education. So if you have the right internal innovation structure implemented, you will have a great influence on your employees' education and development. There are even people from HR saying it's the most affordable education they can get for their employees. So what are your experiences with the development of people, with the self-education point? Do you, Dave or Gabby, had experiences that you heard about people who said, wow, I learned so many things during this process? Do you have examples about that, or about HR departments that came up to you and had a great deal of feedback to give you back?
So the feedback we've had comes from the Kickboxers themselves. And there is a lot of appreciation from the Kick book and what they learn in that process. And most of all about how to verify your assumptions with customers and get true customer feedback. Often, quite a few of our ideas are internal, but even that process of really talking carefully to the internal customers, people think they do it, but this pushed them to do it to a new level. And that's part of the reason, I think, why so many ideas do change from the beginning. So yes, that has really helped. I don't think we've got enough ideas that have gone through the whole process to really appreciate the full value of that development opportunity. It's so far great, but we need a few more people to really experience the blue box, the proper blue box process, I think, before we can really see the full potential.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we often see a big transformation already when it comes to the first phase of the kickbox.
Yes.
So, to focus on self-service and self-education, Dave would like to also add some thoughts about it.
I just want to add, actually, there was one question in the chat before on how to run a program during COVID. The screenshot you're seeing on top, that's actually a screenshot of our Miro board that we also now integrated to our GetKickBOX program, where you really are able to fully coach as well and run the program remotely, even drop ship the boxes directly from the production in the integration workshop to the kickboxers. And I really believe, regarding your question, Celia, I really believe this applied learning, self-education is really, really impactful and more sustainable. Also more sustainable just reading a book, just reading the kickbook. It's much better if you're applying it right away. And here is really a combination. You have some personal touch points with coaching, but super lean. It's not more than 3 hours in the whole red box. You have email coaching, which happens automatically through the platform with all the frequently asked questions, the right stimulation at the right moment. There's extra mile, a lot of deep dive content people can access when scanning QR codes in the book. They can access to the external freelancers, internal experts, and there's a lot of stuff they can use to educate themselves. In the blue box, you have the screenshot on the right. There's even a huge toolkit, the Boost Map toolkit. They can go even deeper. And I think this approach on education and self-education is super powerful.
And to add to the question you were mentioning before, someone asked about COVID-19. Yes, it's absolutely possible, and we will actually have next Friday a webinar about this topic with Tiba from Siemens, because they roll out GetKickBOX during COVID-19. So yes, absolutely, and come to the webinar next week, because it will be about this topic more in detail. Exactly. Now, a few thoughts about how to create these powerful movements bottom up. As Dave has some great examples they did at Kickbox.
Yeah, I really think it's at the end, movements are all about people, make people engaged with the brand, with the topic, and that's something we tried to do from day one. Having these gigantic boxes in the offices, this one here, even like the physical things you can touch, stickers like here on laptops, on smartphones, even webcam covers, where you have like protect your privacy, but share your ideas, always with a message, but really try to start a movement and also transform the company we're working in.
Exactly, and the same examples or similar examples we have from Rush, Gabby.
Yeah, I think the Kickbox materials just resonate. It's you've made our lives very easy. I say it's about frequency of communication. It's about having lots of different ways of connecting with people, keeping it varied. You'll see our Hall of Fame, because again, I think a lot of what helps is the recognition that our kickboxers get and the visibility that they get. So we do a lot to celebrate the ideas and their progress, all the learnings at the same time. So yeah, this is something that, again, it's been harder during these COVID-19 times. It really has, because a lot of it relies on the personal interaction and having a drink and giving input and this type of thing. So when we are back in the office, we are determined to sort of revitalize and bring back some of the energy we had before we all went to our home offices.
Exactly, yeah, we're all happy that we can go back into social life. Absolutely. So as a quick summary, I would like to give you the 5 statements that we just discussed. So bottom up empowers your innovators. It involves everyone, as we mentioned a few times, and we mentioned it that often because it's fundamental to really get going with your innovation strategy. It means lean validation. It enables self-education, and creates powerful movements, as we have seen now at the end. So I've seen there are so many questions in the chat, and we're running a bit out of time. But I would like to maybe try to answer to one or two questions.
I think Stan one is actually a great one we can definitely answer. Stan asked, where can I get the kickbox? The process behind the kickbox. And actually the answer will be on the next slide here right away. Just scan the QR code and download the PDF or...
Exactly.
Or we have the physical. You can also reach out if you're interested in a physical copy.
Absolutely. And so shall we go for one more question, Dave? Or
just
I think we have 2 minutes left. I would say that's very Swiss what we're doing here, time management wise. Do you have a favorite question?
How to start implementing Kickbox? Just reach out to hello@GetKickBox and kind of a chat. It's really the way we launch Kickbox programs is really a ready-to-use approach. Within a few weeks, you have a fully kind of the full Kickbox brand, the full power launched in your organization. Like it's all template based. We just really basically you can just use whatever you have and get started, or you can adjust as much as you want.
Exactly. So, and I will try to get back to each of you who had a question separately with email. So, because we have to wrap up here. I hope you enjoyed it a lot as we did. Thank you, Gabby, so much again for joining and giving your insights about Roche. I always enjoy it so much to see what our peers are actually doing. Also, thank you, Dave, for taking the time to be here with me today. And so feel free to get in touch with me. I will try to get back to the questions that you asked here in the chat. And next Friday, we will have a webinar about how to launch an entrepreneurship program in times of COVID-19 with Tiva from Siemens. So that will be very interesting as well. And especially because I've seen 1 or 2 questions about this topic. So we're looking forward to see you again next week, hopefully. And we wish you a lovely weekend.
From my side as well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the great moderation, Celia, and see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, bye.